I'm Sav Jonesa, and thanks for joining us for APTN National News Weekend. In Nova Scotia, a group of Peskotomuhkati fishers from Maine were harvesting baby eels this week. The eels, called elvers, can sell up to $5,000 a kilogram. But Canada's Department of Fisheries and Oceans has banned the harvest. Here's Angel Moore with this story exclusive to APTN.
These fishers are dipping their nets, hoping to fill them with elvers. But what they are doing is illegal according to the Canadian government. But Adam Newell doesn't care.
But we have to continue this fight because our people died for it. Our ancestors fought and died for this, for us here today. And we're going to honor them. We're going to honor their deaths. We're going to honor that by continuing to fish in a very management way, in a very conservation way.
On April 15th, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans banned harvesting elvers for 45 days due to violence and poaching. But Newell says treaties take precedence over colonial laws, as stated in the 17th century peace and friendship treaties. Fisherman Eric Francis says,
"We use our treaties to fish all over, wherever we can, our ancestral lands. And that's a big thing, is allowing us to have the access, our children, our grandchildren, and so on."
Not only that, Newell says the treaties were in place before there was an international border.
Back, 300-400 years ago when the treaties were created, there was never a border for our people. We passed freely.
The Peskotomuhkati traditional territory includes southern New Brunswick and the state of Maine, and occupied the coastal regions, including the Bay of Fundy. Newell says,
to us, there's our ancestral lands, our ancestral waters, and for the Peskotomuhkati, it goes into Nova Scotia. Our Mi'kmaq relatives were always relatives of ours, so we would gather together, we would hunt together, we would fish together.
For Peter Clement and his brothers, sons, and nephews, fishing is a family affair.
We are all fishermen. We've been all fishermen most of our lives. I can remember back fishing black salmon in Quebec with my father, exercising these same rights that we have and always had.
The fishery is controversial. Some say it is not a traditional fishery. Eric Francis says,
"You can look on a bigger picture. We harvest veal. There's all kinds of different things that we harvest. People eat eggs. Those are undeveloped babies, right?"
As the sun begins to rise, the elvers are kept in buckets with air pumps, so they are kept alive. The fishermen say they will keep fishing, and fisheries officers have stopped by, but no arrests have been made. Angel Moore, APTN National News, southwestern Nova Scotia.
A mother and daughter are dead after a knife attack in front of a school in Edmonton, Alberta. Chris Stewart brings us this story, and a warning: elements of the story are disturbing.
The vicious stabbing in front of the Crawford Plains School has devastated the Robillard family. Just before 5 p.m. on Friday evening, a man with a knife stabbed 35-year-old Carol Ann Robillard and her 11-year-old daughter, Sarah, who went by the name of Jaden. The attacker fled on foot. Carol Ann died at the scene, while Sarah died in the hospital. Edmonton police found the suspect shortly after, and 2 officers shot him. He's in critical condition in the hospital. 13-year-old Max Dow says he saw a strange-looking man approach and attack the mother and daughter. He says it was traumatizing to watch.
It was really graphic. Hey, I never witnessed a crime like that in my life.
Neighbors heard the shots from police.
Hear this pop, 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 and both of us just kind of hit the deck and didn't really know what was going on.
I saw the gun, didn't even really register. I just ran and grabbed my daughter and took her to the back of the house and got my wife to come to the back, and we just got low because we didn't really know what was going on.
I'm just getting worked up talking about it. I can still feel it in my chest. It's pretty traumatizing.
On Saturday, family, friends, and well-wishers held a candlelight vigil. Donna Robillard is Carol Ann's mother and Sarah's grandmother. She says her 8-year-old granddaughter managed to escape the attacker.
Why my granddaughter? Why? I wish I was there. And my other granddaughter is going to have a hard time. She needs a lot of counseling and all that because she's seen it all And she made it through. And she's only 8 years old. And she's really hurting.
A GoFundMe has been set up to help with funeral costs and expenses. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
The man suspected in this incident was shot by police. He died of his injuries Thursday night. Last week on Red Dress Day, there was a rally in Terrace, British Columbia along the Highway of Tears, a stretch of road where dozens of Indigenous women and girls have gone missing. APTN's Lee Wilson reports.
MMIWG advocates, families, and supporters marched from the section of Highway 16 in northern BC known as the Highway of Tears. They commemorated lost loved ones with drumming and songs. Tears to Hope Society organized the event. This group provides support to families with murdered and missing relatives. Gladys Raddick, a longtime advocate, shared the number of families impacted.
Our organization, Tears to Hope Society, has 42 names and pictures of missing and murdered loved ones, just from Prince George to Prince Rupert.
Posters of Colton Fleury, Francis Brown, and Cindy Martin, who all went missing between 2017 and 2018, are among the many posters along the walk. Wet'suwet'en member Delina Call spoke of multiple murdered and missing cousins and friends who went missing on the Highway of Tears. She shared their family's struggle with the RCMP response in 1990 when her cousin, 15-year-old Delphine Nicole, went missing near Smithers.
Basically, they made it sound like she was the one that was making this up. And so there was no real search effort. They told other people in the community that she had just run away. She must have just run away, so what's the point in going to look?
Nicole stated the response was similar when her friend Ramona Wilson went missing near Smithers in 1994. Her body was found near the Smithers airport the next year. Nicole called for the MMIWG National Inquiry, 231 calls to justice, to be put into action.
But that they're actually truly fulfilled. And there are this many people here to spread the message and make that ripple out so that families are supported. Not a poster on some business window, not a hashtag on some corporate website, but that families are supported.
Gladys Raddick has been an MIWG advocate dating back to 2005 when her niece Tamara Chipman went missing near Prince Rupert. She vowed to continue to fight for impacted families. She called for change and urged those in attendance to spread the word.
We want something done. We want to end violence against women. And if it takes a little crowd like this to go home and talk about it at your kitchen table, do it. Let's end this together.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Terrace.
Thanks, Lee. Now we have to step aside for a quick break. We'll see you when we return. Welcome back. Cases of HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, is on the rise in Manitoba. Advocates recently held a rally in Winnipeg to push the provincial government to intervene. Here's more on that issue. A spike of confirmed HIV cases in Manitoba has advocates calling on the provincial government to act quickly. As according to one report by the Manitoba HIV program, the rate of new cases grows to 3 times higher than the national average.
We need a provincial-wide strategy for Indigenous people around HIV and STBBIs.
Albert McLeod is the director of Two Spirit Consultants of Manitoba. At a recent Winnipeg rally held by advocacy group ACT UP Manitoba, he said the spike is a product of systemic anti-Indigenous racism.
We need our government, whether it's Liberal, NDP, or Conservative, or whichever government, to understand this is a global pandemic of HIV, and it's been around for 40 years, and it should not still be happening in Manitoba. We're a first world country, we have tons of money, And yet what's been given around safe injection, harm reduction, and HIV is a drop in the bucket.
The report, called the Manitoba HIV Program Report, shows that people living with HIV in the province grew 52% between 2018 and 2021. And 73.4% of people referred to the Manitoba HIV program self-identified as Indigenous. According to the report, the most common ways for acquiring HIV was through heterosexual sex and injection drug use due to needle sharing. Thomas Linner, the provincial director for the Manitoba Health Coalition, says the HIV spike is a public health emergency.
More than one person a day dies of an overdose in Manitoba. Just about every day, another person is identified as being HIV positive. We need to take real concrete action to address this public health emergency, and the game playing by this government has to stop.
A provincial spokesperson said they are aware of the increasing HIV numbers and that taking action is a top priority. They state they are continuing to invest in several initiatives, including provincial funding for an Indigenous-led testing and treatment program for urban Indigenous people in Winnipeg. Advocates demand for funding for province-wide HIV awareness and prevention, like supervised consumption sites.
You need the prevention tools, the harm reduction tools in place if you know there are cases of HIV, whether you're, rural, urban, northern, remote, or unreserved, right? That message has to get out there. And you can drive from Winnipeg to Thompson, you're not going to see a poster about HIV prevention, right? So it's that attitude of that it's no longer important is false, and we need to get the message out there.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg. A beadwork program in Manitoba for Indigenous women in jail has been restricted by provincial justice officials. Supporters of the program says it's a setback. Tamara Pimentel has more.
Learn at once.
Marianne Sawicki beads every day. It's a craft she learned while incarcerated at the Women's Correctional Center in Headingley, Manitoba.
Reconnecting with your culture, and it's very therapeutic. Yeah, I bead every day. I have people always messaging me what they want. I make a bunch of custom orders for a lot of people.
She spent 7 months at Headingley, and in that time she sold her work through the Women Helping Women program, an initiative created by Sandra Burling, which connects beaders with buyers, returning all profits to the inmates. APTN spoke with Burling at a holiday trunk sale in December.
You know, the fact that they are coming out of jail without anything, and not having housing, not having support, not having medication, it to me is just really a desperate situation.
But the beading program has now been limited by the Manitoba government. A statement from the province reads in part, WCC is transitioning to a new model, and the beading craft will be continued in the facility in a way that will increase access for inmates free of charge, while alleviating concerns associated with the previous program. A provincial spokesperson would not tell APTN what those concerns are, but says now beadwork can only leave the prison during holidays, such as Mother's Day or Christmas.
Beading is medicine to our women. It offers healing, empowerment, and pride.
Manitoba NDP House Leader Nahani Fontaine brought the issue up on Monday to the Manitoba Minister of Justice.
These women are seeking their financial independence through this beading program. Can the minister tell us when this program will be fully restored?
The program is transitioning so that more of the inmates can participate in the program. The beads will still be the personal property of the inmates, so they can distribute it to those on special occasions.
Sawicki, who is now a full-time beader out of incarceration, says the new program may cause setbacks and reduce the motivation to bead.
They don't have anything to get out with, you know what I mean? Like, some of them just have the clothes on their back too when they get out. I don't think that's fair to take that away, because they're gonna get out with nothing, and then they're gonna fall back to getting in trouble with crime and everything, and end up back in the same situation they were already in.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
2 new reports are taking a close look at how the White Horse Emergency Shelter is serving the community. Sarah Connors has the details.
One of the reports found that the shelter is meeting the basic needs of the people who use it. It noted the shelter has an immediate impact on guest health and safety, like helping them access medical care and avoid the elements. The reports also found some guests don't feel safe staying there, especially women. One report noted stakeholders also reported that people trying to stay sober don't find the shelter to be a conducive environment for their recovery and try to avoid the shelter. Respondents noted other issues like a lack of cultural activities and incidents of violence and the financial impact on nearby businesses. The reports were commissioned in 2022 when Yukon government was in control of the shelter. Since October, the Council of Yukon First Nations and nonprofit Connective have been operating the shelter and are addressing those issues. That includes building a women's and children's shelter and hiring a cultural support worker. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Akwesasne Mohawk Territory straddles Ontario, Quebec, and New York State. Hydroelectric service is spotty, so a couple on the Quebec side started handing out generators. As Amelia Fournier reports, this came in handy during a recent ice storm.
It may be a beautiful day outside, but just this morning, Alexandra and Jason David's power went out.
As you can see, we don't put it away, just because you never know when the power is going to go out.
Something that happens frequently on the Quebec side of Akwesasne.
It is very frustrating when just right there, across that tree line, they never lose power. And you can see it if you're driving around at night. Lights, everybody has lights and everybody's going about their business, but as soon as you hit this side of the road, it's darkness. It's quiet, it's eerie.
Akwesasne's situation is particular. The community straddles the borders of the United States, Ontario, and Quebec. While the cleanup from the aftermath of April's ice storm that hit Quebec and eastern Ontario is still underway, the Quebec side of Akwesasne, which is serviced by Hydro-Quebec, lost power for days. Luckily, some Akwesasne families were spared the worst of the outages, using generators distributed by the Davids back in February.
The last power outage we had, we got some really cute messages from some families like, thank you so much for the generator, because we're able to use it today. And
because of the faulty power, Akwesasne residents rely on generators, but not everyone can afford them. Nonprofit Save the Children Canada provided the Davids with funding, allowing them to hand out 15 generators based on highest need, one being a single mother with 3 young sons.
When we brought that generator up to the porch, those little boys were jumping up and down and they were like, oh my God, a generator! They were so excited. So even at that young age, they understand the fact that we don't have power a lot of the time over here in Quebec. So, and they know that it's a good thing for their family.
We bought it for camp because there's no electricity at camp. It comes in more handy at our house where we live.
But generators are an expensive, temporary solution, says Alexandra.
In 3 days, families are losing everything in their fridge. Even with generators, you don't always get to power everything that you need.
The community's band council provides subsidies for spoiled food, something Hydro-Quebec has yet to do. They also provide warming centers and meals during long outages. Grand Chief Abram Benedict says the council has met with Hydro-Quebec several times to address the underlying causes.
We do know that through the last power outage, because it was so largely affected a large area, that Quebec Hydro did admit that for financial purposes, they had not made those investments in pruning trees, and as a result, a very long extended outage.
In an email statement to APTN, Hydro-Quebec said that tree pruning should be finished in the next 4 to 5 weeks and infrastructure improvements finished by the end of this year. But for now, the community is a step closer to getting what they need to power through. Amelia Fournier, APTN National News, Akwesasne.
We're going to take another quick break, but stay tuned for more stories when we get back. Zach Whitecloud of the National Hockey League's Vegas Golden Knights should be getting media attention for his play on the ice. But some comments about his last name got more than that. John Anderson is an American sportscaster. When White Cloud scored a goal against the Edmonton Oilers, he compared White Cloud's name to toilet paper. White Cloud is from Sioux Valley Dakota Nation in Manitoba. They say they're proud of their band member, and the incident is a learning lesson. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs agrees, saying hockey brings us together, yet racism and discrimination continues at all levels. Anderson apologized, admitting that he blew it. White Cloud was emotional with reporters after the incident.
I carry my grandfather's last name, and nothing makes me more proud than to be able to do that. People make mistakes, right? And it's just a time for everyone to learn.
White Cloud says he and Anderson have spoken, and he accepts the broadcaster's apology. A University of Winnipeg psychology student will take part in the upcoming Manitowabi Festival despite a busy schedule. Madison Moore is embracing her Cree culture and has been learning contemporary jingle dress dancing. Leanne Sanders reports.
21-year-old Madison Moore has a lot on the go and will take part in the powwow at Manitowabi. The Winnipeg Festival celebrates Indigenous arts, culture, and music, May 18th to the 22nd. Moore says growing up on Opaskwayak Cree Nation, 6 hours north of Winnipeg, she wasn't always encouraged to participate in her culture. But about a year ago, she started dancing as a way to stay fit.
Moving forward, I actually wanted to go into powwow dancing and reclaim my culture a bit more, because I wasn't really incorporated with my family growing up, because the residential schools and generational trauma. But now my kukum actually just recently made my jingle dress a couple days ago, so I've been trying it on, wearing it out.
One of Moore's goals is to increase Indigenous representation in any way that she can. She's being interviewed for the Miss Universe pageant and made a brief appearance in a History Channel documentary on Truth and Reconciliation Day. She just finished her second year of university, something her grandparents made sure she understood the importance of.
They've always encouraged me to persevere through anything, and especially with school. My grandpa, he always nailed me on, go to school, get an education.
Moore is also learning Swampy Cree on her own and is a youth support worker at Nadinaway, where she tries to uplift young people.
There's a lot of sadness in the community too, and it does affect our youth, and I can see it being frontline worker. They're struggling with mental health, drug abuse, addictions, everything.
Moore credits her culture and her ancestors with staying positive.
I smudge every day and pray, and I talk to my grandpa who passed away, but I always know that he's here for me, he's watching over us, and all the ancestors and all my spirit guides, they're taking care of me and my family, and that's what really helps me keep grounded in life.
Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Wow, what a great story. I can't wait to see her dance at Manitowabi. Well, that's the end of our broadcast tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great Mother's Day weekend.